Hi. So, considering that the quarantine is lasting this long, we are now moving to digital resources. So, for my students, I am going to be sending out videos daily or at the very latest every other day regarding your ELA menus and soon your mathematics as well. So, before we get on to that, we're going to move on to our ELA menus, which are being done digitally until we can get back in the classroom. And if this goes well, we're going to keep doing it digitally. So, most of you have already received this. It's 15 pages. Let's take a look. The point of this particular ELA menu is to one, I want you to do a little research on each of these topics to decide which one of them best suits your interests. So I'm not going to make you do research on a topic you don't like. I'm giving you choices and options. Two, to practice how to do research, and there's going to be another video on that later. Today, we're just front loading it. And then third, just to understand how you're going to get your details down. So I understand that you don't want to immediately write 4 to 5 sentences after reading an article. No, so I'm going to model and guide you through how you should do this packet. So first and foremost, ignore this date. We're going to ignore the date right now. Your only goal right now is to choose your topic. And again, we're front loading this, doing a lot of very basic research. Consider it our 3 reads methods. So remember, when it comes to our 3 reads, what we have to do is 1, skim. So very lightly reading. We're not really stopping and probing a particular sentence. We're just like, okay, this is the water cycle and blah, 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 evaporation, blah, 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 this, okay? You don't have to read it too heavily. Your second reading is when you should read more heavily. Second, read more heavily. And then you're going to underline or highlight what sticks out to you. What sticks out to you. So this means, like, let's say the second paragraph of your reading an article about the hydrologic cycle. You're like, I wonder what evaporation means. You might want to highlight that, especially if it really catches your interest or you don't understand it. And then third is when you read more heavily. So this is when you're really looking into the highlights and how things fit together. Remember that word context. We were talking about context a lot. Does it fit the situation? And by situation, we usually mean what is going on. Okay. So now that we've got that through with our 3 reads method, we're going to look through our sources right here. So these are the appropriate sources listed for your initial research. As we do more research later on, you're going to choose your own websites after we do a lesson on finding accurate sources, because not every source on the internet is accurate just because it's on the internet. We have nationalgeographic.com, kidsnationalgeographic.com, and weather.org. I would suggest using Kids National Geographic before going on to National Geographic, particularly because with National Geographic, sometimes they require you to sign up or subscribe to them, which is free, but you might want your parent to do that for you. And then weather.org is just a website about the weather, and some of these topics do deal with the weather. So it's important that we incorporate that in as well, considering that this is also about global warming. So now I'm going to do a little modeling about how we're going to work with these terms. But before we do that, let's look at the instructions. Use the following websites to research these topics, the ones listed below. You may also use YouTube to look up videos about this topic. Now, when I say YouTube, I genuinely mean documentaries. There are plenty of scientifically accurate documentaries on YouTube, some that are actually uploaded from National Geographic. So you're going to want to make note of that. Is that if you're going to look up a video, say, about the hydrologic cycle, you're going to want to actually put in hydrologic cycle and write in the word documentary or scientist explains. Okay. You must use at least 2 of the sources that are listed right here to write your 4 to 5 sentence summaries. Right here it says 2 to 3. Let's just ignore that. Change it 4 to 5. It was initially shorter because I assumed we'd be back in school by now. Okay, so here is my modeling. So this is the first one we have, the hydrologic cycle. First and foremost, the word hydrologic is a little tricky. If we divide this word up, and we're actually going to go through this in another video, hydro corresponds to the Greek word for water. So we're looking at water, the word logic, how things are going, and cycle, so how water works. So hydrologic cycle. I'm going to go to Kids National Geographic. You can see it just pops up right here. Right here. And I'm going to type that in as soon as it's done loading. Okay, here we go. Search. Hydrological cycle. The water cycle. So that's the first thing that pops up. And just like I said, hydro corresponds to the Greek word for water. So I'm going to trust this source. So here we go. We are looking at the article, just very briefly skimming through it. Water cycles, constant movement, storage of water throughout the earth. 332.5 million cubics of water, oceans, lakes, and rivers. So just really skimming through it. I'm not paying too much mind to the vivid detail. So that's my first reading. Now, something that's sticking out to me this is my second reading. So the water cycle's constant movement and storage throughout the earth. So the movement of water is something that's important. So that's an important detail I'm actually going to make note of. I'm not just going to leave that aside. I'm not going to start my sentences yet. I'm just going to say movement of water through the earth. So this doesn't just mean the planet. It also means oceans, lakes, and we should also consider rain as part of it. Rain. Again, I'm not making my sentences right now. I'm just gathering my notes, and this is what you should be doing as well. Take your time before you write your sentences. Okay, so what else does it say about water? To oceans, lakes, rivers, stores, and transportation of water. Water moves through condensation, evaporation, and precipitation. It's stored in ice, snow, and ground. So here, when it says water moves through condensation, the previous sentence before said that this cycle is about how the earth stores and transports water. So I'm going to want to actually highlight condensation, evaporation, and precipitation, which is snow and rain. And I'm going to write those down right here. Condensation, evaporation. And don't worry so much about your spelling right now. You can always fix that later on, as long as you know what you're talking about. And precipitation. And precipitation. Precipitation. So that means rain and snow. So these are important things about the water system. Movement of water through the earth, condensation, evaporation, precipitation. So that was a very small article on the Kids National Geographic. Next, I'm going to go to weather.org. Now, the reason I'm choosing to go to this website is because rain and snow fall under precipitation, and those are types of weather that we get, so I might want to learn more about that. So I'm going to type that in, weather.org. Okay. So let me see what I can find here. Storm watch, travel, marine, aviation, at climate. Okay, let me see what's under climate. And I see I have all of these graphs here and these charts. So that's going to tell me that this website is reliable because it's using a lot of sources to educate me. I have a temperature index, air quality, atmospheric, globalwarming.org. It's giving me more sources to work with, so really pay attention. If it's giving you more sources, use it. If you choose global warming for your topic, you're going to want to use these sources. If you want to do the geologic cycle or things about temperature, the sources are right here. So definitely look through these sources. Okay, carbon monoxide, aerosol, optical depth. Remember, you don't have to know what these things mean right now. That's the point of research. You're going to look through and discover for yourself. I'm seeing all of these charts, but I'm still not seeing where I can find where I can find my hydrologic cycle. So let's see, maybe I should go to weather history or links. So if these are too confusing for you, one thing you can do is you could also look it up. I'm not against you looking it up on Google as long as you're doing it effectively. So if I want to say hydrologic cycle, I'll say chart. Maybe I can find a chart of this cycle and put it into Google. I'm getting all of these images. So there's one right here. Let me see. Oh, and look, I think it even has the words I just saw. So precipitation's one of them. Transpiration and evaporation. Pretty cool. So I'm seeing the movement of water. So if you want to take this, copy the image, and you can put it right here in where it says image. So you're going to copy and paste it. This is going to help me understand, but I'm still not sure what evaporation, precipitation, and transpiration is, or it's not even bringing up condensation. But now I know transpiration is a word that I should be looking for. So I have these 3 details now that are going to help me understand how I should maybe make my description. So I understand right now that the hydrologic cycle is the movement of water through the earth. This includes oceans, lakes, and rain. So rain, water has to go up into the clouds and come back down. Condensation, evaporation, and precipitation are part of the water cycle, and transpiration is the water cycle. So this is again a point where maybe I'm going to have to use an independent source outside of the ones that I provided. So I might have to look it up. So maybe I could say go to a dictionary, or I could just type it into Google right here. What does evaporation mean? Evaporation. Water cycle. If you put the term next to it, like when I just put evaporation with water cycle, that's going to give me a very definite definition, meaning that it is in the context of what I'm looking at. So it relates to it. Evaporation is the process by which water changes from liquid to a gas or a vapor. So evaporation, now I want to start making whole sentences just to get an idea of what I want to do. This is how I'm going to organize my thoughts based on what I'm learning. Evaporation is when water turns into gas. And that gas will float up typically. It floats up to the sky. Floats up into the sky or atmosphere. Some of you who might want to do research on the atmosphere should learn that term, atmosphere. What about condensation? Again, let's keep that term water cycle in there. Condensation. Condensation is the change of the physical state of matter from a gas phase into a liquid phase. So my key phrase here right now is gas phase and liquid phase. So that might seem too wordy, but it's essentially, if I keep reading it, the context is going to come out more. Most often refers to the water cycle. It's the reverse of vaporization. So if vapor is going into gas and it's the reverse of that, I can kind of conclude that this means that gas is turning into a liquid. The water gas turns into a liquid through condensation. And again, this is going to lead to rain and snow, and I can see right here from what I gathered, precipitation is rain and snow. So I can use my context, what I've already learned, to kind of make my summary. And again, this is not about getting this right. It's about getting as much information as possible to get an overall view of what this is. So if you're still a little confused, that's fine. That's why I'm saying take your time with this. So gas turns into liquid through condensation, which leads to precipitation. The water cycle, let's capitalize it, or we can also just use our term right here, hydrologic cycle. Let me see, is about how water moves through the earth. So I think I have enough details to make my summary now. I have an idea of how I'm going to explain it. So I'm not just gonna leave these three sentences here. These aren't good enough, particularly because I want it to be organized. So